This is a Friedtanzer from Awards Radar, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with Mireille Enos about Lucky Hank. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I've watched you previously on shows like The Killing and The Catch, and I feel
Yes.
like this is a good sort of happy medium between those two.
Yes, that's exactly right. The Killing obviously is very dark and gloomy, although like wonderful. It was like the thrill of a lifetime playing that part. And The Catch, my husband used to describe as an eyelash show, beauty and glamour and more lightness. And Lucky Hank has has like kind of the humanity and some reality, but it also has laughs and levity as well.
It's true. Were you familiar with the book at all before coming onto the show?
No, not before coming on, but of course I got it and read it. And Richard Russo is such an incredible novelist. It was a wonderful resource to be able to go to.
How is the book different from the show, at least in terms of your character?
Well, it's really not Lily's story in the book. It really is focused on Hank, and in the book, I think Lily is actually quite satisfied with her life. They live in a lovely place. She has her beautiful home in the woods, and she's a little bit of a mirror to Hank in terms of like where his compass of happiness is, but otherwise she's totally content. Um, Aaron Zellman and Paul Lieberstein are wonderful writers and creators. Definitely wanted to shift that for the show. They wanted Lily to have her own bigger storyline and actually to be reaching for something as well. And to have kind of her story arc be pushing against Hank's.
I like that because she, at least at first, it seems like she's not the main character, and she has some other story that might be very interesting.
Yeah.
But he only has so much room in his own life for personality and misery and goals.
Yes, that's right. And I think actually at the point that we meet her, she has been mostly content. But then her husband slipping this much farther into kind of the pit he's in makes her start to ask her own questions of like, why am I putting my kind of bigger goals aside if he's not happy either way? So I might as well like forge ahead.
Of course. Have you ever had a job where you've had to do something like, clean up the urine on the floor when the janitor's supposed to do it?
I'm a parent, so there's that. I have an 8-year-old boy. um but I don't know. I tend to be pretty scrappy in that way. When there's a job to be done, I kind of like get in there. I think Lily was more grossed out by that than I would have been.
That's fair. Are there other things that you find are easy or difficult to relate to about her?
I think we definitely have a similarity in that I think people in couples sometimes fall into that trap of like making sure everything around them is running smoothly. The wheels are staying on the train, and um, and then put aside their own kind of like personal needs. I definitely occasionally need to like check in and be like, wait, everyone's okay, but what about me? And Lily definitely does that. I don't know. She's definitely the most similar to myself, I think, of anyone I've gotten to play before. Um, yeah, yeah.
I like that.
Which in some ways is restful and great, but actually in other ways makes you feel like, oh, everyone's gonna see me a little bit, which
Fun a few episodes in to see her sort of in a separate element when she gets to, go away and,
yeah.
meet with Ashley and Tom. What was it like, filming that real, I think, launching pad for her own sort of solo story?
Yeah, it was a ball. Those two actors are so wonderful. And Aaron and Paul definitely said there's room to see a different aspect of her when she's in New York. She has her comfy home persona, but who is she when she's got a little fire in her? So that was great, and those actors were just so easy and open, and Yeah, it was a very fun the restaurant day was such a fun day of shooting.
I like also the honesty that this show has because I think people think a lot of things and they don't necessarily say them, but then when they do say them, they don't try to cover up with something else. They're
Yeah,
very direct, and I especially like,
yeah,
the way that Lily confronted Tom and just immediately, called him on what he did when that could
yeah.
have been a episodes long, secret brewing on any other series.
Yes, maybe that's part of what the comedy is built on, actually, in the show as well, is this kind of like directness that all the characters are at are moments in their lives where actually they just want to say what they mean. And that kind of directness is, I mean, I think it's fun. It's funny. That moment obviously wasn't necessarily funny, but there's I think a relief to just saying what you mean, which we don't always give ourselves permission to do.
And it's nice also to see that from Bob Odenkirk because he's
Yeah.
played this masterful character who
Mhm.
is essentially defined by his ability to lie and manipulate
Mhm.
others. What was it like working with him, and what expectations did you have going in?
He's such a tremendous actor performer. I had never met him before, but obviously knew his work, and it's meticulous and so excellent. What's true about Bob as a person is that he's one of the most well-read people I've ever met. He's endlessly curious about the possibilities of what a scene could be, what a story could be. So and I have that kind of perfectionist and curiosity and all of that. So was a wonderful partnership because we both really like wanted to get in there. He also has, which I do not have, this background in sketch comedy where his mind is so fast. It's just like, and you can see like you're in a scene and then suddenly you see the little wheels turning in Bob's brain. You're like, anything could happen in this moment. We have no idea. And often did. He just would like throw out wonderful, funny, incredible things. It it was anyway. It was a real pleasure to make this show with him.
I also know that you're not part a lot of the faculty scenes, but
Yeah.
obviously there are some interactions. How much are you aware of, what's going on with those, and what is it like to get to come into them a little bit, at the dinner party and other things?
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible ensemble this is. Just like so much talent and big-hearted people. Um, I think Aaron and Paul, handpicked everyone, and they created a world within a show, but they also really created a community. They picked people that were like-minded in kind of the way they interact with the world and the way that they do their work. And um, we're having a little bit of a love fest there on set. We are very fond of each other. So that episode 5, which was such a kind of a highlight in the season where we all get to be together. I mean, it was thrilling just to be in the same room with all those actors. And then it's so rare you're given that kind of writing if you're not in on stage. That kind of writing is usually in theater, where you have 15 pages of uninterrupted dialogue, people sitting around a table talking to one another, and shooting those scenes. The generosity, the way that people passed the ball to one another and carved out space for each person's moment to make sure that nothing got lost. It was very special.
That's really nice. Have you heard any surprising reactions to the show from fans or people in your life?
Um, Not surprising. The reactions have kind of followed my expectation, which was we kicked it off really well, but also the start of a new series is always a little befuddling. And the tone of this show is tricky. It's funny, you don't see this exact tone very much. So we kind of all felt a little wonky, whatever. And then by the time we arrived at 5, we knew what our job was. And then from there, we just had, a really thrilling time once we felt sure of what the goal was. And that seems to be like the response. Like there was there was such a warm response to episode 5, and then since then, that's kind of continued. People just saying like the show has found its voice and it gets better every week, and which is, makes us happy, of course, because we want people to enjoy it.
I do want to return briefly to those two shows I mentioned at the start of our conversation. I remember, I think I was traveling for work when The Killing started, and I stayed with a friend, and she was like, "You're the TV guy. What should we watch?" And we decided to watch the first, I think it was the first 2 episodes of The Killing. And they were like, "Oh, this is certainly an intense, dark choice."
Yeah, yeah.
Although I always remember the, 1-900 Linden,
Yeah.
the little bits of humor in there. What is it like being on a show that is just so grim by definition?
What I have found to be true, and was definitely true on The Killing, is when you have really, really dark material, you cannot live there 12 hours a day. And so there tends to be like levity, kind of gallows humor when the camera isn't rolling. Joel and I became very good friends. There would definitely be moments later on in shooting where like we would be in the car for hours at a time shooting a scene, and we would be telling whatever story we were in the middle of, like laughing our faces off, and then they would roll and we would just put that away. You have to find ways of filling the gaps in between, otherwise you can't live in that space well. You need that contrast. I think Venus Suit is what. No, I was just gonna say, I think Venus Suit is such a brilliant writer and storyteller, and wove this incredible tale. And she has that quality as well. When you meet her, she's bright and warm. Anyway, things are interesting in contrast to each other.
I also don't think there's been a better sort of yo-yo of highs and lows with renewals and cancellations than the
Well,
story of that show.
I know. It was such a weird road because we were so kind of beloved in season 1, and then everyone got so mad at us when we didn't wrap it up. I was baffled. I was like, "But you like us. We're just giving you more." I'm so confused. So then anyway, canceled and then renewed for season 3, which is actually my favorite of all the seasons. And then canceled again. Patti Smith, the incredible rock star. She was a fan of the show, and when the show got canceled for the second time at the end of season 3, and Sarah has just shot her lover and is in the woods, Patti Smith was bereft, and she wrote this short story called Sarah in the Land of the Dead, basically talked about Sarah trapped forever in these woods. So luckily we got to come back in and finish it.
And I don't know that The Catch ever had quite as much of a, an audience in the same way, dedicated that way. But I do think it was fun, and I think it's again a break for you, since I know you've done Hannah and other stuff. That this is, it's lighter fare that I assume is somewhere near as fun to shoot as it looks.
It was a ball to shoot. It was a great group of people coming off of The Killing. I definitely wanted to do something totally different, and it was that. I think it never fully knew what it wanted to be. Whatever, but it was light and airy, and the clothes were awesome, and I worked with wonderful people.
Well, I'm hoping for a very long life for Lucky Hank, but what else do you want to do? What would you like? What haven't you done yet that you'd really like to try?
Well, this was what I kept saying coming up on Lucky Hank. I was like, for so long I've been in this kind of like dark, and I really want to do something just very human, because even The Catch, which was lighter, it was still like private eyes and guns, and it wasn't real life. It was so I just wanted to do something very human, and and light. And so now I'm getting to do that. I don't know. I'm very happy in this kind of world. So whatever I get to do next, I would love for it to stay. It doesn't need to be comedy. It doesn't, but for it to stay human for a while, you know, just regular people.
I think that's great, and I hope that all goes very well. Thank you so much for
Thank you
taking a
so
few
much.
minutes.
My pleasure.